This message is different from what you expected to hear, different from the prophecies of reunion and return you have been seeking in the quiet hours of your waiting. And perhaps that difference is precisely why you were guided here, to this moment, to these words that will not comfort you in the way you hoped, but will liberate you in ways you cannot yet imagine. Sometimes the universe does not whisper, "Wait longer," but instead speaks with sudden clarity. Walk away now, not because you have failed, but because the curriculum is complete. You have been searching for signs of their transformation, for evidence that the connection you feel so deeply in your bones will finally manifest in the physical realm as partnership, as commitment, as the love story you have written in your heart 10,000 times. But what if the sign you have been waiting for is this very moment of recognition, this sacred interruption of your hopeful narrative, this divine redirection that asks you to consider an uncomfortable truth? This is not failure, though your mind may try to frame it as such in the vulnerable hours when doubt creeps through your carefully constructed faith. This is completion, the natural end of a chapter that was never meant to become the entire book of your life. The ending you feared is actually graduation from a spiritual course you enrolled in without conscious awareness. And now you stand at the threshold between what was and what will be, between the familiar ache of longing and the unknown territory of your own liberation. Write "I am ready to hear truth" in the comments if you can handle this message, if you are prepared to release the fantasy in exchange for reality, if you are willing to honor yourself enough to hear what your soul already knows but your heart has been afraid to acknowledge. Not all intense connections are meant to last beyond their appointed season. And this truth, while difficult to accept when you are still feeling the electricity of recognition in your body, is one of the most important spiritual principles you will ever integrate into your understanding of love and purpose. Some people enter your existence to catalyze profound growth, to shatter outdated versions of yourself, to show you capacities and wounds you did not know you carried. And then they exit, their role complete, their presence no longer necessary for your continued evolution. They were the earthquake that demolished structures in your psyche that needed to fall, not the foundation upon which you were meant to build your future. And confusing these two functions is where your suffering has taken root and grown into the persistent ache that brought you here seeking answers. Carl Jung understood this when he explored the concept of meaningful encounters that arrive with synchronistic precision, connections that feel fated because they are fated, but fated for teaching rather than permanence, fated to reveal rather than to sustain. You met this person at exactly the moment you needed the specific lessons they carried in their being, lessons you could not have learned through gentler means, lessons that required the intensity of attraction and the pain of disappointment to penetrate the defended places in your heart. Soulmates walk beside you through lifetimes, matching your pace, growing as you grow, choosing you again and again through challenges and transformations. Soul teachers arrive like lightning strikes, illuminating everything for one brilliant moment, forever changing the landscape, then vanishing into the distance while you stand in the aftermath, forever altered. The confusion between these roles has kept you waiting, kept you hoping, kept you interpreting every small sign as evidence of imminent reunion when the evidence actually points toward completion, toward the natural conclusion of a teaching relationship that was never designed to become domestic partnership or lifelong companionship. This person was your mirror, not your match, and mirrors serve a different function than partners, a function that is complete once you have seen what you needed to see. Look at what you have become through the alchemy of this connection, through the fire of longing and the ice of rejection, through the cycle of hope and disappointment that has tempered your spirit like steel forged in extreme conditions, and you will begin to see the gifts hidden beneath the pain, the treasure buried in the ruins of your expectations. They showed you your strength by testing it beyond what you believed were your limits, by asking you to love without guarantee, to give without receiving, to stay open when everything in you wanted to close and protect and retreat into the familiar numbness of self-protection. They taught you boundaries by crossing them repeatedly, by showing you through their actions what you will no longer tolerate, what you have finally learned to name as unacceptable, what you now recognize as the minimum stand. Ard beneath which you will never again lower yourself. They revealed your worth by undervaluing it, by treating as optional what should have been cherished, by demonstrating through their inconsistency exactly what you deserve to never experience again in any relationship you enter from this point forward. This relationship was a spiritual curriculum disguised as romance, a masterclass in self-discovery wearing the mask of partnership, and every painful moment was actually a precisely designed lesson in self-love, self-respect, and self-trust that you could not have learned through easier means. You learned that you can survive the absence of someone you believed you needed, that you contain within yourself all the validation and completion you thought could only come from their presence, that your wholeness was never actually dependent on their choosing you. They showed you the parts of yourself that still seek external approval, the inner child still looking for someone else to confirm your value, the shadow patterns of seeking love from people incapable of giving it. And in showing you these things, they gave you the opportunity to heal them. Every time they disappointed you, you grew stronger in your knowing of what you truly need. Every time they left, you discovered you could survive the leaving. Every time they returned, you practiced the difficult art of holding your ground or losing it, and both outcomes taught you something essential about your patterns and your power. It is not that they will not become the partner you envision in your most hopeful moments. It is that they cannot, not now and possibly not ever, because the capacity you are seeking simply does not exist in their current configuration of consciousness, emotional maturity, and spiritual development. This is not cruelty spoken about them, not judgment of their worth as a human being navigating their own complex journey through this lifetime, but simple recognition of what is rather than what you wish could be. Some people are not equipped for your level of depth, your capacity for commitment, your willingness to do the difficult work of conscious relationship, your requirement for emotional honesty and consistent presence, and no amount of your love, your patience, your understanding, or your unwavering faith will install in them what their own journey has not yet developed. You have outgrown this dynamic, even if your attachment has not yet caught up with your evolution, even if your body still responds to their energy with that familiar pull of recognition and longing. The version of you that entered this connection is not the version of you that exists now, transformed by the very pain you sought to avoid, expanded by the very lessons you resisted learning, and the person you have become requires something entirely different than what this person can offer. They are operating from their own wounds, their own fears, their own limitations, their own timeline of growth that may or may not ever align with yours, and you cannot force synchronization between two souls moving at fundamentally different speeds toward different destinations. What you are asking of them is not unreasonable. It is what conscious partnership requires. But it is beyond their current capacity to give, and continuing to wait for capacity that may never arrive is where you betray yourself, where you abandon your own needs in service of a potential future that exists only in your imagination. The truth, uncomfortable and liberating in equal measure, is that they are showing you exactly who they are, exactly what they can offer, and you are the one who keeps revising the evidence to fit the story you want to be true. You fell in love with who they could become, with the glimmers of their highest self you witnessed in rare moments of vulnerability and connection, with the person you could see buried beneath their defenses and distractions and self-sabotaging patterns. And this loving of potential rather than reality is one of the most seductive and dangerous traps that exists in the realm of human relationship. The danger lies not in seeing potential. That is a beautiful gift of perception, evidence of your depth and intuition, but in treating that potential as though it were already actualized, in making decisions based on the future person you envision rather than the present person who stands before you with all their current limitations and choices. You cannot love someone into evolution they do not choose for themselves, cannot through the force of your belief or the purity of your intention accelerate their journey to a destination they have not decided to reach, cannot substitute your vision of their possibility for their own commitment to growth and transformation. Subscribe if you are ready to stop waiting for potential, if you are prepared to make choices based on what is rather than what might someday be, if you are willing to honor yourself enough to require that people show up fully formed rather than half-present with promises of future change. The person you love exists in fragments and flashes, appearing just long enough to renew your hope before retreating back into the protected fortress of their unavailability, and you have been sustaining yourself on these glimpses, these breadcrumbs of their better self, mistaking intermittent reinforcement for evidence of transformation in progress. But potential that remains unrealized year after year is not potential. It is fantasy, projection, the story you tell yourself to justify staying in a dynamic that consistently fails to meet your needs. They may indeed become the person you see in them, may eventually do the work to integrate their shadows and heal their wounds and show up with the consistency and depth you require. But that transformation, if it comes, must unfold on their timeline, through their choices, in their own mysterious process, and you are not required to wait in suspended animation while they figure out whether they want to do the necessary work. Every day you wait is a day you do not meet your true match, a day you do not make yourself available for the love that would not require this much convincing, this much patience, this much one-sided effort and faith, and the opportunity cost of clinging to this connection has become the invisible price you pay in moments of possibility that pass you by unnoticed. The energy required to maintain hope in the face of repeated disappointment, to interpret mixed signals as secret messages of love, to remain open to someone who oscillates between presence and absence, is energy you cannot simultaneously direct toward your own life, your own growth, your own availability for relationships that would nourish rather than drain you. This unfulfilled connection has become an energetic drain, a constant background hum of longing and wondering that siphons your vitality, your creativity, your capacity to be fully present in the actual moments of your actual life, rather than lost in fantasies of reunion and resolution. You have been living in a state of perpetual waiting, your nervous system constantly scanning for signs of their return, your attention fragmented between what is happening in your physical reality and what might be happening in the invisible realm of their thoughts and feelings about you. The self-betrayal of accepting less than you deserve, less than you know you need, less than you would counsel any friend to tolerate, creates a split in your psyche, a painful dissonance between your knowing and your choosing, between your wisdom and your actions. This split undermines your self-trust, makes you question your judgment, creates doubt where certainty should live, and the longer you stay in dynamics that require you to betray your own needs, the more difficult it becomes to hear the voice of your inner guidance, to distinguish between intuition and wishful thinking, to know what is real and what is the story you tell yourself to make sense of confusion. The cost of staying is nothing less than yourself, your power, your time, your energy, your potential for experiencing love that does not hurt, and that cost compounds daily, growing heavier with each sunrise that finds you still waiting. Walking away is not giving up on love. It is honoring yourself enough to refuse to participate any longer in situations that diminish you, to choose your own well-being over the comfortable familiarity of longing, to act in alignment with your worth rather than in service of your wounds. The universe is trying to clear the path, to create space in your life for what is actually meant for you, to remove the obstacle that appears as a person you love, but functions as a blockage preventing the flow of your true destiny. You must release the wrong one to call in the right one, not because you are shopping for replacements or treating people as interchangeable, but because energetic law dictates that what you cling to cannot leave and what you refuse to release cannot transform. And your tight grip on this connection is actually preventing the very movement and change you claim to desire. What you cling to becomes trapped in the amber of your attachment, frozen in the exact dynamic that causes you pain, unable to evolve into anything different because your holding keeps it exactly as it is, and what you release can return transformed or not return at all, and both outcomes are blessings, though you cannot see this yet through the fog of your fear. If they return transformed, you will know it immediately by the quality of their presence, by the consistency of their actions, by their clear choice to meet you with the depth and commitment you require. If they do not return, you will eventually feel the blessing of that absence, the relief of no longer carrying the weight of unfulfilled potential, the freedom of your energy returning to you like a river finding its natural coup. RSC. Walking away is a spiritual practice, an act of faith that requires you to trust the invisible intelligence that orchestrates growth through loss and gain equally, that sometimes answers prayers by removing what you asked for because the asking itself was born from wounds rather than wisdom. Carl Jung taught that what you resist persists, and you have been resisting the end of this chapter, resisting the natural completion of this teaching relationship. And in that resistance, you have created the very persistence of pain you sought to avoid through your holding on. The moment you truly release, everything changes, not because releasing is a manipulation tactic designed to make them return, but because the energetic shift that occurs when you stop resisting reality creates space for new possibilities to enter, clears the channel through which your life force has been flowing toward someone else, and redirects it back to you, to your own center, to your own becoming. Space creation for new blessings is not metaphor but actual energetic mechanics. You cannot receive what your hands are already full holding, cannot invite new love while your heart remains occupied with old longing, cannot move forward while looking backward. And the physical act of releasing your grip on this connection creates literal availability in your field for something different to arrive. Share this message if you are choosing yourself, if you are ready to stop waiting and start living, if you understand that choosing yourself is not selfishness, but the most sacred responsibility you have in this lifetime. Describe the energetic shift that moves through your body when you finally, truly, completely let go. The softening of chronic tension you did not know you were holding, the return of your attention to the present moment instead of the imagined future, the sudden awareness of beauty and opportunity you could not see while your focus remained fixed on absence and longing. They might return transformed, doing the work you could not do for them, showing up with the clarity and consistency you always knew was possible, meeting you as an equal in consciousness and commitment. Or they will not return, and time will reveal the mercy in that non-return, the protection inherent in unanswered prayers, the blessing of doors that close to redirect you toward better destinations. Either outcome serves your highest good, though you cannot yet see how this could possibly be true, cannot yet trust that the universe is benevolent in its redirection, cannot yet understand that sometimes love means letting go of people you love because the relationship itself has become toxic to your growth, to your peace, to your capacity to become who you are meant to be. You do not need their apology to move forward. Do not need their acknowledgement of how their actions affected you. Do not need them to understand or validate your experience or admit that they could have chosen differently at 100 different junctures, where they chose self-protection over authentic connection. You do not need them to see your worth to recognize what they lost, to wake up one day with sudden clarity about your value, because your value exists independent of their perception, immutable and intrinsic, requiring no external confirmation to remain true. You only need your own permission to move forward, your own decision to stop waiting for external validation before you grant yourself the freedom to close this chapter and begin the next, your own willingness to act as your own authority in matters of your heart and your life path. Closure is something you give yourself, not something another person provides through explanations or apologies or sudden transformations of behavior. It is an internal event, a decision you make, a door you close from your side regardless of whether they are still standing on the other side waiting or have already walked away without looking back. The power in closure lies not in their participation, but in your capacity to grant yourself completion without their cooperation, to write the ending yourself rather than waiting for them to provide it, to take back the authority you gave them over your emotional state and your forward movement. This is where you reclaim your sovereignty, where you stop outsourcing your peace to someone who has repeatedly demonstrated their inability or unwillingness to safeguard it, where you become the primary agent in your own story rather than the supporting character in theirs. You have been waiting for permission that will never come, for a sign that will never be clear enough, for a transformation that may never occur, and the waiting itself has become the problem. The staying itself has become the source of suffering, and your power lies in recognizing that you can choose differently starting now, starting today, starting in this very moment of reading these words that have found you at precisely the appointed time. Someone is coming who will not make you question their intentions, who will not require you to decode mixed signals or interpret inconsistent behavior, or convince yourself that breadcrumbs constitute a meal. And this person will arrive in the space you create by releasing what no longer serves your highest becoming. This pain was the preparation, the necessary shattering of naive notions about love, the education in discernment you could not have received through easier means, the initiation into your own power that required you to face the difficult truth that not everyone who awakens your soul is meant to remain in your daily life. Your real love story is just beginning, not the fantasy you constructed around someone incapable of meeting you, but the authentic story that unfolds when you make yourself available for partnership built on mutual choice and consistent presence, rather than potential and intermittent glimpses of connection. The future that awaits you contains love that does not hurt, relationships that do not require constant interpretation and justification, connections that feel like coming home rather than running towards someone who keeps moving the destination further away. And you cannot arrive at that future while dragging the weight of this unfinished past behind you. Thank them silently for the lesson, for showing you what you will no longer accept, for catalyzing growth you would not have chosen but now would not trade, for being exactly who they were so that you could become exactly who you are, and then walk forward without looking back, without checking to see if they are watching, without hoping they will finally see what they lost and come running after you. The looking back is what turns you into a pillar of salt, frozen in the past, unable to move into the future that is trying so desperately to reach you, to claim you, to wrap itself around you like the embrace you have been seeking in all the wrong places. This is not an ending but a beginning, not a failure but a graduation, not a loss but a liberation, and everything you learn through this connection will serve you in the love that is coming, the love that chooses you back, the love that stays.